Okay, let's look at the inside of the cab now. There's the suicide door I was telling you about earlier, I think. The half cab, I don't know what they call the back there. You see that once again, we are in the middle of a 1-month trip. So of course we've got all the goodies in there. Dog food. So these are 27.5-inch tire bikes, plus size tires, and we fit 2 tires in there in the back without having to sacrifice, leg room. We just we fold up the rear seat, and it just lifts up, and then both those bikes go in there no problem. We just take off the front wheels, and the front wheels are even in there. I'll show you from the other side. A lot of room in the back. There's a lot of storage down here underneath the rear seat as well. And once again, when that rear seat's down, because the back is cut out, you just go right across the bench of that back seat and right through the pass-through. Okay, so that's the rear. The seats are Recaro, and they have 5-point harnesses on them, which, look how dirty. This is Barbara's side, so that's why it's a little messy, and hopefully she won't see this video. So it's a 5-point harness, and yes, it is overkill. And as soon as I got this thing, the first thing I thought was, that's silly, I'm taking those out. And then I rode in them for a while, and I said, wow, I am not taking these out. They're very, very comfortable. It's a pain to put on the 5-point harness, but I guess it's extra safety, and it's worth it because the seats are very comfortable. The seats have, they're electrically adjusted, and they are heated, and they have a fan in them as well. This is supposed to be a bulb for a lumbar support, but it's missing. It is intact on the driver's side. All right. So this is all just standard Dodge stuff, but I kind of wanted you to see Barbara's area. We've been looking at property here in Idaho, and so there's Barbara's desk, I guess. I think we'll look at we'll look at them from this side. Steering wheel's not in the way. All right. We got some serious gauges here, and other goodies going on the drivers, on the dash, I guess. I don't know what you call it. Okay, left to right. So these are lockers. That's front and rear lockers. You cannot turn the lockers on unless you have the key on. When you turn the key on, that light lights to let you know that the key is on. And then you can flip up the locker switches, and then these red lights will turn on to tell you that the lockers are on. That's the front air compressor switch I told you about. So there's a rear and a front, so you can flip that on, and then there's an orange light there to tell you that's on. The only other reason you need the key for the lockers and for the fuel pump. So this is the switch that transfers fuel from the rear tank to the front tank. It's a OEM Dodge fuel pump that's in line and pumps that fuel from the rear to the front. He put it on a separate key because you definitely do not want to be running that or the lockers without knowing it or by accident. And when the fuel pump's on, the red light comes on. Okay. This button right here is for, well, let me do this one first. This switch manually engages the Horton fan clutch. There's a heavy-duty fan clutch up front, so the fan normally is freewheeling on the truck. It comes on at a certain temperature, and then if you want to turn it on manually, you just flip the switch up and you can engage the engine fan clutch. When you park somewhere, you're driving, if the truck is hot, you push this button before you turn the key off, and the truck will do a cool down. The truck will keep running until it reaches a safe cool temperature, and then the truck shuts off. So that's kind of a cool down button. This switch connects the front and rear batteries. Remember I told you that there was a switch in the back that did the same thing, and it's lighted. So I flipped this switch, and now that light is on. The front and rear batteries are now connected. Well, I'll talk about regulators and how the charging system works when we go up to the hood. So front and rear batteries connected, and the light is on in the back as well as the front now. This little green light comes on when the fan clutch kicks in, but you'll hear it and sometimes even feel it actually. This switch is for the transmission cooler. It automatically comes on at 150 degrees, but if you want to turn it on manually, you have that option here. And then that's the fuel pump switch we already discussed. All right, going back on the gauges, turbo boost, exhaust outlet temperature, or what do they call it? See, I'm used to helicopter TOT. This is, I guess that's it. Turbine outlet temperature. So that's just water temperature. That is oil pressure. That is rear, oh shoot, I'm not sure I'm catching those. Okay, I wasn't looking at my screen there. So that's oil pressure. That's water temperature. That's turbine outlet temperature, boost. All right, let's pay attention here. This gauge is the rear axle temperature. So it's kind of cool. You can keep an eye on that, because if you're going to have any kind of bearings or anything go out, you're going to see it in this temperature gauge. That's a transmission oil temperature. That is a fuel gauge for the rear tank. The main tank is on the dash. That is a voltmeter, and that is air pressure gauge for the onboard air compressor. And I think that does the gauge. We're on the driver's side now. So the rear, the sun. Rear tires and front tires for the bikes. There's the other seat. So this is kind of cool. We've retained the electric controls from the standard Dodge seat, and then we have electric controls for the Recaro seat as well. So a lot of adjustment options there. So this switch is very important. There's a ball valve that is located after the gray tank. Yeah, let's walk back there and look at it if we can. And so there it is right there. So that's a ball valve, and it's on the drain line after the gray tank, and that's the gray tank right there with the hose coming out of it. And so all of the sink and shower water goes into that gray tank. And once again, we camp in places like this, so we generally just leave that open, and it dribbles on the ground. Usually if we're here for 2 days, the water doesn't even come out of the tank. The valve is set about 1 inch off the bottom. And then when we drive out of our campsite, we dribble a little bit of water here and there, and you know, no big deal. It's just sink water usually. But if we want to go sit somewhere, or we want to park in someone's driveway, or be in a campground or something like that, an official campground, we flip this switch and we close that ball valve, and so that gray tank can now hold 10 gallons of water back there. And then once you get back into the woods and the hills and you're in a nice safe place, maybe a dusty dirt road, you just open that ball valve again and you let that gray water go. Perfectly legal even in California. So you do not have to ever dump tanks on this truck because of the way it's set up, which I think is a wonderful thing. Okay, so just to see the shape of the door, everything's good, no issues. We have a lot of bugs. I'm gonna get inside. That's electric mirror adjust. We're going in. Okay, a couple other things that we had not seen, or we haven't seen yet in here. Just a console down here, nothing special, something I made out of wood. But there are power ports up here. And this power port actually comes from the can't get it in there. So this is hooked up to the rear batteries, so you can run things up here and be using the solar system and stuff like that, and not worry about it. And so this switch right here turns on this power port right down here, and it's connected to the rear. And it also shows, it's hard to see from this angle, but that's rear battery voltage, which is 13.2 right now. So apparently the sun is hitting the solar panels and they're starting to crank out some power. Yeah, it's a little console area down there. Nothing special. Four-wheel drive selector. This is the rear. I don't think it'll come on without the key, but that's the rear camera monitor. So when I drive Barbara's Sprinter, I look up because that's where her rear camera is mounted. And when I drive this, I look down, and I'm always looking in the wrong place. What else do we have here? That's an Alpine receiver, and you know, Bluetooth. It's just standard. It's nothing really great. But the stereo system in here it's very nice. They're MB Quartz speakers, and they're good ones with tweeters on the pillars. And there's a subwoofer under the dog bed here, and there's a 600 watt amplifier underneath the passenger seat. So the stereo sounds very nice in here. And I think that's about it. Everything else is just standard. No crazy wear and tear issues or anything like that. Oh, there's the radio has you can Bluetooth your phone and talk on your phone. Hands-free, that's what it's called. The dash is in good shape. It's not all cracked up, but there are a couple like these. Someone had, I think Bill had a couple other adapters going in here for something, and there's a hole in the dash right there, and a couple. He had something mounted there. But overall, it's in good shape in here. And you see that whole section was taken out to put this gauge panel in, so there's no the drink holders. That's why I made the console. There are no drink holders in the dash anymore. Oh, okay, a couple more switches. So this is one of the switches for the, let's see, this is the spotlights. So you push that in to make the spotlights come on with the brights. Oh, that's an exhaust brake right there. So it turns on the exhaust brake, and it also locks up the torque converter as well. So you don't want to have that switch on if you come to a stop. Makes for a big shuddering scariness. This is that's the driving lights, and that's the fog lights up front. And that red button, he used to have an air horn in here. He doesn't anymore. So that red button is not hooked up. And I think that does it for now. One other thing while we're here in the dash, you know, we have cruise control, we have power windows, we have intermittent wipers, you know, all those things, heated mirrors, air conditioning, of course. You can disable the, oh, why are we blurry? You can disable the passenger airbag. There's a mystery light here. There's an alarm system in here that I don't have the remote to. And so that's part of it. It blinks from time to time. I have no idea what it's saying or why. But there's actually a module behind this. So you could get that module, get the numbers on it, get a remote, and then you would have an alarm system in here. And it might be, I doubt it, but it might even be low jack. I know at one point I read something where Bill said that he had low jack installed. This is an auxiliary port for the stereo, so you can plug in anything, you know, that has a headphone output. You can plug it in and run the stereo. Power port, I think that's standard Dodge. And I think I've covered it. There's a minor computer up here. It just tells you not fuel consumption, but it tells you the temperature outside, and a compass as well. Okay, I think that's it. Say goodbye, Beans. Beans. Alright, thought we should look in the engine compartment a little bit. See what we got going on up here. I did a lot of cleaning up of the battery cables. They were quite the mess when I got here. That is a fuse, let me see, circuit breaker basically for the all the gauges, some of the dash stuff. Everything's very well fused. There's a chip right there for the engine. It's modest, works quite well. This thing has plenty of power. Disconnect for the Horton fan clutch. Wiring right there, so you can change the belt if you need to. Batteries are relatively new. You can see the cabling is all heavy duty. Ooh, that's bright. Big air filter. There's a negative fuse block right there. A newer alternator. I had an aftermarket one, but it went out, and then I could not replace it, you know, back in the hills like I usually am, so I put a stock one back in, and you could just carry a stock one and throw a new one in if you needed to. There are two, these are very high-end regulators. There's two Balmar regulators. The internal regulator has been bypassed, and so these are smart. They're intelligent regulators. They'll charge the batteries. You know, bulk float charge, or bulk float and absorption, all that good stuff. And they're separated, so the regulator on the left is for the front batteries, the regulator on the right is for the rear batteries. And so it's two separate systems, so you don't have any of that cooking of the batteries that can happen when you try to tie everything together. Whoa, climbing up I am. Just an overall shot. I know the light's not good. I apologize for that. Those are the spool valves for the exhaust brake. And I think that's about it. Replaced the water pump last year. That was cool. Side of the road, Alaska. Actually, it gave me warning. I saw the weep valve, so I knew. And I think that's it. One other thing. Some soundproofing in the hood to try to make this loud Dodge a little less so. Okay.